Got a major women's march here planned for tomorrow, people coming in from around the country. So along with celebration for a lot of Americans, there's a lot of dissent that's going to see, we're going to see that play out in the streets. Police are prepared for it along the parade route, a lot of police, a lot of military as well. So it's kind of all in the mix. And even I have not discerned, and I'm not seeing it here, you know, sustained, organized protest. You're going to see that's planned. These seem a little bit more inchoate in terms of people setting garbage cans on fire. I'm not exactly sure what they're protesting.
And just to give some context for people who are just tuning in right now, yes, there are pockets of protests, but as you say, it has been overwhelmingly, the mood here has been excitement. We've seen people who have come in from all over the country. They've brought their parents, they've brought their grandparents who've wanted to come, and there's been excitement from them, people who support Mr. Trump and people who are excited about the future, and that overwhelmingly is what we've seen since we've been walking around since 4 a.m. But of course there have been pockets of much quieter protests. This is the biggest, loudest, most violent one that we've seen, and at the moment it seems to be contained to that 13th and K area.
You know, most surprising, we met a lot of people who are here not necessarily because they're big Trump fans, but because they support the process of this democracy and the transition of power.
And it's history in the making that they want to see.
They wanted to witness history. And to David's point, you know, I've stood in a lot of these protests turned riots. You have to know the composition. Who's there with an actual group with a real message of protest? Who are faux anarchists? Who are here just to make trouble? Who are just criminals that come to take advantage of these situations? So it's not as simple as just watching the crowd and seeing these moving scenes.
And frankly, I've been in a lot of protests around the world where, you know, you see protesters show up, they're already wearing gas masks, and they may have, you know, black headscarves and things like that. I mean, you know, these are people who are in it to get into it with the police. They're not even holding up signs protesting against Trump. So it is what it is. I'm struck by, as Allison was saying, we were getting a cup of coffee before we came out here, and I met a couple from Scranton, Pennsylvania, former Vice President Biden's hometown. One's a doctor, one's a nurse, talking about a great day that they've had, really liked what they heard in the inaugural address from the president, and we're getting ready to line the parade route, which is what we're seeing. Weather's holding off so far. I mean, it looks like about 10 deep along the parade route, and it's a great view from behind us, looking back toward the Capitol. Really a great view.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, where we are, this vantage point from the Capitol to the White House, it's majestic, and you feel all of the excitement. People are now cheering along the parade route. It's a real front row seat in history, and everybody here feels it that we've spoken to.
We'll start in about half an hour. We're showing you one of the many choppers that are in the sky here overhead. We got a big team covering this inaugural parade. Anderson Cooper is with us as well. What are you seeing from where you are, my friend?
Yeah, Chris, Allison, thanks very much. We are in our rooftop location, not too far from the Capitol, where we've obviously been watching the inauguration. I'm here with Charles Ramsey, the former chief of police of Washington, D.C., and we're continuing to watch what you have been reporting on. And just, Chief Ramsey, what do you see when you look at this? I mean, how organized do you think this small protest is? How much trouble is it for the police officers and the job the police are doing?
Well, I mean, it's relatively small in terms of protests, but it's nothing that the police can't handle. I got off the phone just a few minutes ago with Chief Newsham, the interim chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, to find out what exactly was going on. The line you see there is actually protecting the group that's making
Actually, sorry, Chief Ramsey, we actually have Chief Newsham on the phone. Chief Newsham, who's the D.C. interim police chief, he joins us. Chief, thanks so much for being with us. Explain what's going on in this area around 12th and K, now 13th and K.
You know, earlier today we had a small group, a little over 90 protesters that came out intent on destroying property. They broke a number of business windows, destroyed some cars. So tactically, we were able to get them into custody. The line that you see formed right there is trying to protect those officers as so they're safe while they're processing the arrest. As you can imagine, when you're processing an arrest, you have your back turned. So essentially what those officers are doing is trying to protect those officers so they stay safe while they do their job.
So the line we're seeing, there are officers behind them who are processing the 90 to 95 people or so who were arrested earlier for destroying property, you're saying?
That's correct. And, you know, Chief Ramsey knows this because he's very experienced in that regard, that it takes a little bit of time, you know, to get people's property and to get them identified and get them, transported for arrest, and that's the process that's being undergone right now. I think it's really important to point out, in the grand scheme of things, this is a small disturbance that we have in one small part of the city. We have had thousands of people come here and successfully protest today, peacefully protest. And we anticipated that there would be a smaller group intent on, breaking the law, and we're prepared for that. And for the ones that have been throwing rocks at the officers, you can rest assured that investigatively we will identify those folks and make sure that they're held responsible as well.
Yeah, we have been pointing out all along, as we've been showing this, that this is a very isolated incident, that by and large, everything is going peacefully, and a lot of folks and a lot of families have come to this city and are enjoying this historic day, not only down by the Capitol, but walking all around the city. Chief Newsham, do you have a sense of how many protesters there are? I'm not sure if protesters is the right word, but people who are throwing things at the police, how many there are in that group who are trying to...
that's a small group. We have images from much better views. We have cameras all over the place in this city, and I'm in a Joint Operations Command Center. It's a very small group. It's maybe a couple hundred, and literally we have thousands of others who are peacefully demonstrating in our city. So it's a very isolated instance. We expected this kind of thing from this particular group, and they're going to be held accountable, because what we say in Washington D.C. is we agree to disagree, but we don't agree to you coming to our city and destroying our property or hurting folks.
Yeah, Chief Newsham, I know you're busy. I appreciate your time today, and we're here with Charles Ramsey, the former Chief of Police in D.C. It's something like this. It doesn't in any way, for those who want to see the parade, it does not in any way limit their ability to go see the parade, to take part in today.
No, this is outside the perimeter. So those people who are lined up along Pennsylvania Avenue, many of them probably aren't even aware that this is going on right now. So this is an isolated incident. Like Pete said, the majority of people that are here to voice their displeasure on the election of the new president are doing so peacefully. The majority of people in D.C. right now are here to celebrate, and we're just trying to keep that balance and not allow anybody to get hurt or any property to be destroyed.
And in a situation where you have folks who have lit some newspaper kiosk on fire, earlier they were using those as barricades, is that something the police just kind of, as long as it's not expanding, they try to just let it happen, or that they would actually move in to try to stop it?
Well, you don't really let it happen, but you take each situation as it develops and try to make a determination. Is it really worth moving in and just causing a bigger disturbance, resulting in more arrests, or do you let something like that go because it's not really damaging anything else? Normally what we do is we try to what we call sterilize the area, get rid of those kiosks, get rid of anything that's flammable, but you can only go out so far doing that, and this is a little ways away from the parade route.
And there's looks like someone has broken into an SUV that was parked in that area. That's obviously another concern, the destruction of property, which we're seeing right there. Chief Ramsey, appreciate it. We're going to take a short break. Coming up, go back to the pomp and the ceremony of this really extraordinary day that we have been witnessing here in Washington. We're standing by for the start of the inaugural parade. We'll see President Trump again soon as he wraps up a lunch on Capitol Hill. Much more after a quick break.
We did not know that some of the anti-Trump protests would take on this character, with flashbang grenades, large quantities of some sort of irritant, whether it's tear gas or pepper spray, we don't know. 95 arrests from D.C. police announced already. We've had D.C. police officers injured in these clashes. And again, the inaugural parade is due to start in less than 1 hour. It will not go to this exact spot, which we are seeing here, but it will be within a matter of blocks. And these clashes, this is live footage. This is the kind of confrontation that nobody wanted to see in the streets, other than the people who are pulling this off right now. This is in the context of very large organized anti-Trump protests that are due to take place mostly tomorrow, when hundreds of thousands of people are expected in a very large women's march. Nobody prepped for, or at least in a mainstream way, nobody prepped for protests to look like this.
Kate Snow, who we are used to seeing afternoons, just not quite in this context, is along the parade route for us. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Brian, I heard you talking about where the parade's going to be, so let me give you a guide. I'm at Pennsylvania and 4th Street. This is Pennsylvania Avenue behind me here. You can see crowds of people. It's gotten actually more full as the hours have progressed here. There was a bottleneck in security earlier at these Secret Service checkpoints because of the protesters that you've been seeing. I know you've been checking in with Jacob Rascone. He's about 6 blocks north and 6 blocks to the west of where I am right now, just to give you some perspective. And I'm joined by a bunch of guys, mostly from New Jersey, which I know Brian will appreciate, in with Bikers for Trump. That's what you all have in common. And one guy from San Diego. Sorry, Mark. Let me start, Eddie. Let me ask you about why you're here. It's your first inauguration ever.
Yes, we're here to support Trump. He's patriotic. We're patriots, and he's looking out for us.
And Sean, what did you think of the speech? You heard it over the loudspeakers here, and a lot of people have been commenting about how Trump seemed to kind of put Washington on notice. You liked that about the speech?
As you know, he speaks from the heart, and I think everything he had to say was what America was feeling and why he's got elected.
Jimmy, you felt the same way about that speech? Were you moved by it?
Absolutely. Happy Obama Day, by the way. Like I was saying before, we are all American patriots. We believe Donald Trump, Mr. President Donald Trump.
He's your president now.
To say that right now, we believe he is an American patriot, and he is here for all the people from coast to coast, border to border. He's there for everybody.
Why did you want to be here? Why did you all want to be here today?
And we're proud of him. We're very proud of our new president.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be here. I drove 2,500 miles, 500 miles a day.
You drove from San Diego, right?
Rode out from San Diego with several guys, and all these great men that are here right now. I'm so proud and honored to be with all these men. Every single one of these guys are my brothers now, and we have something in common.
And if people say, "But hold on, he's divisive. There are protests going on as we speak. You know, he didn't say enough to unite us today." What would you say?
I say a lot of people don't listen, or they choose not to listen to what he's actually saying. That's the problem. Yeah. He does want to bring us together. He's not divisive. We've been divisive for the past 8 years. He wants to bring everything down. Racial tensions right now are the worst they've been in a very long time. I believe he will bring them together, bring us all together again.
All right, thank you guys so much. I don't know if you can hear, Brian, there's a guitarist now playing Star Spangled Banner in the background here. This is a gathering of Bikers for Trump. They actually got a permit here to be in this square right next to the Canadian Embassy. And I think they're one of the few pro-Trump organized events today. And we'll send it back to you.
All right, Kate Snow, thanks. Our thanks to the delegation Bikers for Trump. We're switching back and forth. You saw what appears to be a National Guard Humvee pull up there, and now the police line is substantially different at that intersection than when we last checked in. This is on K Street. 2:25 p.m. As we said, our attention has been focused. Hey, Jacob, can you hear us? Okay, Jacob cannot. Again, we've been not at full strength communications-wise, and because sound technician working with Jacob was overcome by some of the dispersant spray. You see these vehicles used by National Guard, some police forces around the country. That body style dates back to the first Gulf War, and a lot of these were bought on reserve coming out of military surplus. But again, that appears to be either smoke grenades or dispersant. We can't be sure. We are well behind that police line, under the watchful gaze of a member of the Metropolitan Police Department.
Steve Schmidt, as we're watching these protests in the street, there obviously are protests against a lot of inaugurations. The first George W. Bush inauguration in 2001, there were loud and angry protests after the way that election ended. Do you think this is going to be an important part of what happened today? Do you think the way that Trump just talked about law and order, for example, that this is going to be part of the start of his presidency?
Well, Certainly, when you see rioting on television and you listen to the president's remarks at the speech, this doesn't hurt him politically. It helps him politically, and it marginalizes the peaceful protesters that will take to the streets by the hundreds of thousands tomorrow.
And that we just saw there on that corner.
I do think that one of the features of this presidency, certainly in its early months, was we're going to see widespread protests across the country, big ones, marches. Some of them may turn violent. And the degree to which they do turn violent, it will drive intensity behind the president's law and order message.
It's also, strategically, it's an interesting challenge that the Democratic Party is aware of, which is that in a country where most people who voted to elect the Democratic candidate, in a country where the incoming president has lower approval ratings than any incoming president ever. You see this driver sort of trapped in the middle of a bunch of protesters. It's not a good situation. The Democratic Party is in a position where they are going to want to try to lead the opposition to Trump in a way that is constructive and electoral. It's where people who are opposed to Trump on whatever grounds and to whatever degree will feel like they've got another home inside politics, and that you don't have to do non-political things like this, which once you're setting fires and throwing stuff at police officers is no longer politics, it's just rioting. The Democrats will try to channel it.
I do think that one of the interesting things that we'll see in the months ahead is the Democratic Party is at its lowest point in power since the 1920s. Yep. And I think when you watch Donald Trump earlier today in his inaugural address, he's not particularly ideological in the way that a Ronald Reagan was or that Barack Obama was. And I think a feature of our politics is increasingly going to be defined by a lateral line. And above that line are the people that have benefited from globalization, have benefited from the technological revolution of the last 20 years, and below it are the people that have been left behind. And that speech today was fundamentally aimed at that segment of America that's been left behind on some of these changes. And when he talks about infrastructure and he talks about building at the scale of the inaugural speech, Democrats will largely be supportive of that. Massive public works spending and programs. And I think you'll see this fault line play out where conservatives, Republicans are deeply skeptical about that level of government spending. And I think a Democratic base is going to be very angry at Democrats who want to cooperate with Donald Trump on some of these policy initiatives. But it was with Lawrence on his program the other night, and we talked about the fact that functionally you have a three-party town now. You have a Trump party, a Republican party, and a Democratic party, and these coalitions will be very interesting as they form and disperse transactionally around a lot of different issues.
Can I jump in here? The Trump party has a momentum too, but my question is, how does President Trump get the agenda that he laid out in that speech, that very aggressive speech, that protectionist agenda, that isolationist agenda? How does he get that through an internationalist Congress, basically?
We're having a discussion while K Street burns down. I just wanted to reference what we're seeing here. This won't go over well with the Metropolitan Police or fire departments. No. You don't want this as a visual, the fire in the middle of the street set up by protesters in an area where they own this block. So Jacob Rascon is now able to hear us, and Jacob, obviously they've lit everything they can find that's burnable.
Yes, we've seen just back and forth. Police will move their line. Some of the protesters will resist and they'll throw rocks. The police will respond with pepper spray or something like pepper spray and flashbangs. You're hearing them yell, apologize for the language about Donald Trump. If we move over, and I just wanted to show you some of what they do as they go. As they move down the street, they end up taking their bricks, which they just remove from the street, and they do something like this. They'll smash the windows. They were doing a lot of this earlier as well, and not only to cars, they were doing it to a Starbucks. They did it to a hotel. And I want to make sure and clarify that most of the protesters we've seen today, and we've seen maybe nearly 1,000, have a specific purpose and don't want to be violent, it seems. But there's a small number who it seems that is their purpose. They want to cause trouble. They want to cause violence. They want to make the biggest mess that they can. And they're usually, and not all of them, but the ones that we've seen do this are dressed in black. They're covering their faces. Though, again, not all of them are doing this who are dressed like that, but some like this, that seems to be their purpose. Now, when I talk to them about why they're doing this, they give a variety of answers. They usually don't want to identify themselves or tell me where they're from, but they will say something along the lines of, this is because we are upset or angry or hate the establishment. And it's not just Donald Trump. Some will tell me they hated Hillary Clinton. They also hated Congress, and they hate Congress. So it's not very focused, their purpose, it seems, except to say that they're mad at the establishment against people in power generally. As I covered Donald Trump protests throughout the campaign, we would usually see small groups of people like that, where they showed up covering their faces dressed in black. And when you asked them why they were doing what they were doing, they said something to that effect. Some volunteered that they were Bernie Sanders supporters, though I would say that's not fair to characterize all of them like that. But now we're just at a standstill waiting, I guess, for the police to push their line forward, and in which case we expect that the protesters will again start to throw their rocks.
Okay, we hear the police helicopter above. The skies officially are restricted during an event like today to all but police and security aircraft. It is a huge air restriction going, as I read the map, beyond the Beltway today, just because you have every living dignitary there. This, again, live picture, better transmission technology than we have with Jacob because of our need to move around. Michael Beschloss continues to watch and listen with us. Michael, what do you think we're, let's cast aside what we're looking at live, and because we're always going to have a certain level of protest with us. What do you think we're headed for? I'm told we just lost Michael Beschloss. Oh, communications being what they are.
One of the things that the police have to think about here is how much this can be contained and redirected away from the main security event, of course, which is the safety of the president, the new president, and the inaugural parade and the crowds that are there, or whether they will try to stop this in some way, moving it away, moving it into an area where it can be corralled, contained, and kept apart from the inaugural parade is an easier thing to do when you've only got 25 minutes to play with than actually trying to stop this. Right. But it's like squeezing a water balloon to a certain extent. When these protesters are mobile, and they may be able to set up shop wherever they're moving.
What I can tell from friends who are at the post looking out the window and tweeting is they seem to have set up a kind of perimeter around it. So I believe they may be trying to contain it right where it is. It is no closer than 6 blocks from where the parade passes, no closer than 6 blocks from where the demonstration is.
The way those blocks are laid out, they should have no difficulty preventing protesters from moving any closer to it. It's a nice kind of tight arrangement of blocks that are easy to control. And as Jacob pointed out, it's a minority of protesters who are violent. That's always the case in these things. It only takes 1% of them to get all the cameras aimed at them. And having 95 arrests already probably indicates that they don't need to make an awful lot more arrests to put an end to the actual violent element in the protest.
And to Pete Williams' point, when we talk to him, it's probably quite important for organizers to make sure the smoke, the pepper spray fumes, the noise do not interfere with the along the parade route. That has more sometimes to do with prevailing winds than anything else. Another break for us, our live coverage as we await the start of the inaugural parade in Washington. Our live coverage continues on the other side.